Great. Well, welcome to this panel entitled To Legislate or Not to Legislate the AI Realm. Thank you for the introduction. Stanley Greenstein is my name, and I'm at the Department of Law, Stockholm University. And right now, we're going to be speaking law. We heard a little bit about law during the morning, and now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the topic of the law by examining the AI Act, which has just come into effect. So, helping us to unravel all the complicated questions in relation to the regulation of AI, we have Miriam Ben Hadj Ali from the Ministry of Finance, Sweden. We have Jussi Karlgren, who is Docent at the University of Helsinki, and industrial researcher in language technology. Then next to Jussi, we have Rami Mochaourab, who is AI strategy manager at Scania. Next to Rami, we have Sara Saidian, who is a postdoc at KTH, researching about trustworthy machine learning with a focus on privacy and fairness. And last but not least, we have Robert Svebeck, who is an AI strategist, driving reasonable AI implementation at Region Stockholm and at Karolinska University Hospital. Welcome and thank you for being part of this really competent panel. So on the 1st of August this year, the long-awaited AI regulation came into effect. And this is really a unique piece of legislation from the EU because it's the first law of its kind globally to regulate artificial intelligence and also define AI system. It is also what they call a horizontal piece of legislation. So it regulates all AI across the board, and then it focuses on specific contexts, for example, education or workers' management. So it has certain cases that it regulates. And it also regulates general purpose AI models. However, do we really need the AI Act? And does the AI Act really succeed in its dual purposes, namely protecting citizens from the risks associated with AI, while at the same time driving innovation? So let's see if we can unravel some of these questions. So the first question I'm going to put to the panel is, do we really need the AI Act? An easy question to start with. Miriam, should we start with you?
Yes. So I've been part of the Swedish negotiation team for the AI Act since 2021. And in 2021, I think most people were thinking, why? Because, we weren't there. And we were asking, how is AI applied within your institute or authority or company? Most people were like, we're seeing testing where it could be applied. But I think you all know what happened last year, and after that, no one is actually questioning that we might need some sort of policing, in best case, some sort of regulation. And after that, it was a bit easier to actually come out and say, we do have this regulation and we're finishing it. How will you like to see it regulated? And today you can see that countries like the US that never regulates, preferably don't regulate, is actually looking into a sort of a GDPR, a Data Protection Act, because AI has changed the ecosystem, the view of how we are using AI, or also applying AI, that we need some sort of protection in some cases, because we also see that in best case, AI is used like we saw, but in worst case, it can also be used in a very non-good practices. And we also have examples from Netherlands and Norway where people was actually became very mistreated because of very easy automated systems. So just imagine how an AI would have made a big impact within these cases.
Jussi, your thoughts on the AI Act?
Right, I guess I have the voice of the industry here. There are many of us here on that side of the activities of society. And I guess in general, the general view is there are plenty of actions we do that are circumscribed by legislation, we as people in a free society. And one would wish to have as few such circumscriptions as possible in general, to allow, flowers to flower and people to have a good time and so forth. But sometimes there are some guardrails are necessary. And from the standpoint of technology, it would be desirable to have as few technology-specific such guardrails as possible. It's seldom been good news to have a piece of legislation that addresses some specific technical breakthrough and says, this thingy here we need some special rules for, because everything else seems to be going dandy and well, but this one is something that will be abused, and we need rules for it. Because those rules tend to be easy to circumvent, and they age rather quickly and not prettily. But in that light, I must say I'm pleasantly surprised by the AI Act. It's rather less picky when it comes to technical details. There's very little talk about megaflops and memory bounds and such things, and it focuses on the other end of the application of AI at various tasks. And it sets fingers on information imbalances, such things that might well be useful to think about whether it's AI or not, because what is AI today will not be considered to be AI tomorrow. And the question is how the AI Act will age. And that, I think, has to do with how it's being applied. We don't quite know yet how the courts will address it.
Great. Rami, your thoughts?
I could add, definitely, in my opinion, we need to regulate AI and have the law in place, the AI Act. I mean, essentially, AI is a double-edged sword. We have vast opportunities ranging from planning or exploiting large amounts of data, a lot of knowledge to do useful tasks within optimization, decision-making, planning. But then now it's going also more and more towards natural language, perception, and more also social intelligence going into AI altogether. So we're seeing more and more risks and concerns that would require regulation. And AI Act essentially is implementing what's called trustworthy AI, which are built on human rights and social responsibility. So it is positive in that sense to regulate or control the risks while exploiting the opportunities.
Good. Sarah?
Yes. So from my perspective, there are some stuff that can go wrong with AI, and these are quite well documented, at least when you do research in technical domains. There are many examples of a particular AI model was used to do decision making, and it was showing bias against a particular group, or it had certain privacy flaws. So I think it's nice to see that there's going to be a legal framework that acknowledges that these problems exist and also encourages the companies to do something about them. Because I'm going to assume that like most companies are not exactly excited to go like the extra mile of like, oh my god, like, you know, let's make sure that our models don't leak like private information or they're like completely unbiased and these kind of things. So from that perspective, I think it's good, obviously. But it's also that like the AI Act sort of doesn't just say that like, oh, let's do this thing for AI. There's like, you know, different categories. There's like, if you are doing an application in like a high-risk sector, which is like, you know, when you're dealing with data from individuals, like, I don't know, in education or healthcare or transportation, then you need to be careful about what you're doing. And then what you're doing like needs to be like tested in not just for performance, but also for like checking that it's like not making like discriminatory decisions and also like safe in terms of privacy. I mean, I talk about privacy and fairness a lot because that's like the two things that I know best. So yeah, I think it's like good from that perspective because yeah, these things happen and the companies need like have motivation to do something about them.
Yeah, great, Robert.
We don't need the AI Act at all, just for the sake of the balance of this discussion. From the hospital perspective, we don't care. No, seriously, we are already, from the hospital perspective, we are highly regulated already, so the AI Act doesn't really add so much extra protection. We can see artificial intelligence as humans, and humans are regulated. So, of course, we need some regulation, that's obvious. From my perspective, I think maybe they over-regulated a little bit in the Act. We can see that, for instance, that no one else is trying to copy it or agree on it yet. And that would have been really helpful to not be alone. To make it more simple, maybe more would have agreed to join more nations. But we need regulations for sure.
But when you say the kind of the medical sphere is already regulated, does that regulation take into account artificial intelligence? For example, the medical devices regulation refers to software, but AI is not really software as defined in the law.
So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to have to be careful of what I say, but I think the regulations are mostly based on the use of the solution already in the hospital. The MDR classifications and everything is about taking care of the use cases and what we're going to use the solutions for. And we don't really care what kind of technology is used for that solution. And sometimes it is important, of course, especially when it comes to transparency and explainability and understanding the data, because we're using black boxes to some extent, which maybe impacts it more. So, I mean, those kind of perspectives in the regulations are really important because they add a new perspective. So we need some new perspectives for sure.
Great. An issue that I'm particularly interested in is, I mean, the AI Act is there to protect citizens from the risks, but also promote innovation. And lately there have been a number of voices in the media who have been saying, well, the EU AI Act or EU legislation is stifling innovation. It's causing the EU to miss out on an opportunity that only comes once a generation. Companies are not releasing their products on the EU market, saying that it's because of the EU legislation. This just may be a kind of trying to voice one's opinion against the AI Act. What do you make of the AI Act in relation to innovation? Is it stifling innovation like a number of these tech giants say that it is, or is it not as stifling as these entities want us to think it is? Miriam, starting with you again, rather unfair.
I'm a bit biased here myself because I was part of the negotiations. Yeah, of course. There will be parts of this that's gonna take some time. There's a lot of documentation that you need to do. There will be a time to getting used to the new regulation. We hope that it's not going to be as a GDPR. That was really the implementation was maybe not the best, and we're still seeing how it's still like everyone seeing when they're browsing and the cookies and all of that. That was not the purpose, and we hope that this is not going to be that sort of regulation where everyone would be so scared of the high fees, so they're not going to manage or try to develop the best AI for Europe. But at the same time, if we don't have it, as Sarah mentioned, this will be a chance for the ones that wasn't sure what sort of regulation will come in the future. Now they know, and be sure that when they put their systems on the market, that at least I have some areas that I know that this is a system are secure and following the fundamental rights and as long as possible, at least. So, yeah.
Any other opinions from industry, maybe, regarding innovation?
Well, markets work well under predictable conditions. They optimize quite handily around whatever constraints there are. And the problem with the AI Act from the standpoint of innovation and creation and business entrepreneurships and so forth is that it's as of yet a bit unclear what it all means. If that settles well, and we know how it plays out, then it's not a problem. But if uncertainty continues, that will for sure add cost to entrepreneurship, and we don't want that. But if the boxes are as clear as they appear to be now, not a problem. We'll just work around them, which is the purpose of a market economy, after all. So.
Yeah, I think it prevents, but not because of the regulations itself. It prevents because of the knowledge of the regulations. So we need more lawyers in innovation processes early on to explain how the regulations are working. Of course, now we don't really know how they are working, but it's a general problem with all the regulations, the GDPRs as well. If we don't have the knowledge of how it works, it prevents innovation. So we need more knowledge around the regulations. Once we have that, it's not preventing innovation.
Good. Yeah, Rami.
Probably. So on one side, we have innovation with AI, and I think the AI Act is allowing experimentation through the regulatory sandboxes to experiment and have safe environments to do that. When it comes to us at Scania, we are developing AI guardrails, linking in relation to the AI Act. And how I see it, at least, if we have quality management systems and risk management systems implemented well, with the only taking the necessary overhead and putting those boundaries clearly to everyone, then we can accelerate innovation in the sense of exploiting AI more and adopting AI more for innovation with products and services. And this is more or less our aim in that aspect. So boundaries to help us accelerate. This is how I see it.
Great. An issue that I've also been thinking about is, the AI Act, it's there to promote innovation and also research and development. And if you read the recitals to the AI Act, it says that the AI Act should not affect scientific or research development. At the same time, as there is this kind of push towards trustworthy AI, explainable AI, which in a sense is pushing research in a certain direction, demanding certain types of values be built into the technology. Sarah, coming from the research arena, what is your opinion on the AI Act and kind of steering research, potentially steering funding?
Yes, I think what you said is 100% correct, which is great for me, honestly, like more funding for trustworthy AI. But it's also that like, I think another aspect, it's also related to this like innovation discussion. Okay, my opinion is always going to be academic. I have no clue what's going on at the market and so on. But I think like one thing that at least happened with the GDPR is that like it's sort of, because like lawyers interpret GDPR in one way, and then there is like a lot of privacy research going on, and like we never talk to each other, right? But like one nice thing that like started happening with the GDPR is that like lawyers started talking to technical people, because like, you know, you need to comply with something and the technical person has a solution, so that, you know, like we can just talk. And I think that is also part of innovation, right? It's not just like about like companies and SMEs and so on. So I think this could also happen with like the AI Act, that like there are like solutions that exist, and of course they're like, we need like way more solutions for the problem that are at least known. And then, like at least for interpreting or trying to like coming up with standards and so on, like, you know, people from different like types of like backgrounds can talk to each other and come up with like better solutions. That like, you know, if lawyers are interpreting something separately and like we're in our like little bubble like doing our own research. So I think it could also be like a bit of a motivation to have like these kind of projects, which I think are like useful in practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you think of the AI Act in terms of from an organizational perspective, at first it may seem quite simple. Okay, you have an organization within the EU and you apply the AI Act. But I mean, you also have companies, say, established within the EU that have subsidiaries that are outside of the EU. So you may have one concern with multiple subsidiaries, some within the EU, some maybe within the United States, for example, with different organizational cultures. How do you think this is going to kind of pan out, where you have this AI Act establishing certain guardrails in one jurisdiction, and then you have, say, companies in the United States that have to abide by this culture? Rami, any from the
Yes. So when it comes to the AI Act, we're looking into partnerships to develop guardrails together, and also to help us or to develop the processes together when it comes to fulfilling the obligations of the AI Act. And the closest partnerships we would have is within the Volkswagen Group, being Scania, and belonging to that. And the holding that covers the trucks business is the Traton Group, and it includes Scania and MAN. Both are in Europe, but also in the US we have Traton, which is now international, called International, and Volkswagen Trucks and Bus. And essentially we're collaborating to build guidelines to promote responsible AI in general, while MAN and Scania are more motivated to comply with the AI Act, given the fines and the requirements there. The question is, when we're now developing this partnership to develop AI solutions together, the solutions that could be used in Europe and in the US, how motivated are our partners or the brands in Traton to use solutions that are compliant with the AI Act? I see it on one side, it's beneficial. We're bringing in solutions that are trustworthy in that sense, compliant with the AI Act. But from their side, they have less motivation to take all the overhead. So we're discussing and finding common grounds to develop that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. You mentioned the word trustworthy, right. And the whole impetus within the EU is to produce a certain type of artificial intelligence, a trustworthy AI, so that people will uptake it more easily, and it will have a greater effect. But Jussi, speaking in the break, you reacted to the word trustworthy. Explain.
Yes, well, this is a conversation we've been having for a while within the AI research field, and that trustworthiness is not a characteristic of AI. It is a misnomer to try to label AI as trustworthy or not. The usage of AI may be trustworthy or not, and trustworthiness between people is something you earn. It's not something you have. And trustworthiness can vary across interactions, contexts, topics, situations, and so forth. Trying to find, it's as elusive a concept as, say, European values or any other nice words that roll easily off the tongue but cannot be caught in any practical way. No one knows what trustworthy AI means. No one knows what untrustworthy AI would mean. And if we try to stunt the reasoning capacity of a model by saying it needs to be trustworthy or truthful or something else that sounds fine, we risk building a worse model than we would have to begin with. It's the use of the model that is trustworthy or truthful or reliable. People will use technology for nefarious purposes or just for the crack. Fine, let them do it. And that should be legislated, but this is not an aspect of the technology itself.
In other words, maybe we should not try and give the technology the label trustworthy. Maybe we should get people to be a little distrustful of the technology, so maybe we don't kind of get...
I really feel very strongly we should never try to apply the label trustworthy to any technology unless it's about the, stability of bridges or such. But that we should think differently about the qualities of technology we deploy in the world. But, that train has left the station. Everything is labeled trustworthy AI now, so we'll just have to live with that label and try to interpret it in a positive way. But it risks leading us astray into the wilderness, because we can't catch trustworthiness just by saying it.
When the draft to the AI Act first came out from the Commission, there was no speak of general purpose AI models as such. And then this was in 2021, and then at the end of 2022 came ChatGPT, and suddenly everyone was speaking about general purpose AI models, and eventually GPAI models made its way into the AI Act. Robert, we were also discussing a little bit about these models, and you were a little disappointed that the models made their way into the AI Act specifically, because before that, the AI Act could have been said to be technology neutral, but suddenly there was this focus on these models, these large language models, GPAI models.
I think that was a mistake, but I could be wrong, of course. One example that I'm thinking about is if you use a large language model to classify fruit, you're falling under this part of the AI Act, and it's not based on that you're classifying fruit. It's because you're using a lot. Maybe it's a bad use case. Maybe you shouldn't use a lot. That's another story. But I think they shouldn't have done that kind of part in the AI Act. I should just leave that part out. Would have been better, because there's going to be a lot of use cases with generative AI models, and also, of course, in 2 years there will be something completely new that is not included at all right now. So that's my critique, actually. Those parts in the AI Act, I think it's could have done better here.
Yeah, Miriam.
When this was put in place, or during the negotiations, so the last minutes of the negotiations, there was actually not supposed to be any general purpose AI models that was going to be included, because of the metrics was going to be so high, so no one would be included. After they put in the metrics, the day after, Gemini from Google was introduced, and unfortunately they were over the threshold. So it's actually, this is a perfect example of how the regulation is not following the development. And it was really supposed to be the bigger systems, the future systems. But now I think there's 3 AI models in the whole world that is actually will be included. Yeah.
Good. We are unfortunately running out of time.
Yes.
So with that, I will thank you for your participation. And personally, I could go on speaking for hours about the AI Act, but we'll have to find some more time for that or later this afternoon. To the panel, thank you really so much for attending. Most interesting, and yeah, great to have you. Thank you.